The police arrived at my house at 11:47 on a Tuesday night. But the strangest thing wasn't seeing two officers standing at my front door. It was the look on my mother-in-law's face. Eleanor smiled. She looked directly at me and whispered, "You have no idea what you're doing." 6 months earlier, I would have believed her. Back then, Eleanor was simply my husband's difficult mother. She had always been controlling, but I tried to keep the peace. Daniel was her only son, and she constantly reminded everyone how much she had sacrificed for him. After Daniel and I bought our house, however, her behavior changed. She started visiting without calling. She criticized everything I did. My cooking. My furniture. Even the way I organized our home. Then she began saying things that bothered me. "You're spending too much. You shouldn't keep important documents where everyone can see them." And once, she quietly told Daniel, "A wife shouldn't come between a son and his mother." I tried to ignore it. Until the day I found the box. It was hidden behind some old kitchen supplies inside a cabinet. A small black box with a tiny lock. I had never seen it before. When Daniel came home, I asked him about it. He looked confused. "I've never seen that." The next morning, the box was gone. I immediately knew something was wrong. The only person who had visited our house that week was Eleanor. When I asked her about it, she smiled. "Oh, that old thing? Daniel probably moved it." But Daniel hadn't. That was the first lie. After that, I started noticing other things. A folder containing our property papers disappeared. Then some old bank statements. Then several important documents from my office drawer. Every time I asked Eleanor, she gave me the same answer. "You must have misplaced them." And slowly, she started making me question myself. Maybe I really had forgotten. Maybe I was being paranoid. Then one afternoon, I came home early and found Eleanor inside our bedroom. She was standing beside my desk. In her hand was an envelope. The moment she saw me, she dropped it into her purse. "What are you doing?" I asked. She smiled. "Looking for something Daniel left here." I didn't believe her. That night, after she left, I searched the room. Inside my drawer, I found a handwritten note. There were only 6 words on it. "You were never supposed to find this." I stared at the message for several seconds. Then I took a photograph. For the first time, I wasn't wondering whether Eleanor was hiding something. I knew she was. And I had no idea that the secret behind that note would eventually bring the police to our front door. After finding the note, I stopped confronting Eleanor. Instead, I started watching. I knew that if she was hiding something, she would eventually make another mistake. So I went through our old financial records. At first, everything looked normal. Then I noticed several withdrawals from an account Daniel and I had shared years earlier. The amounts weren't huge. But there was a pattern. Money had been taken out several times, and many of the transactions had happened near the same bank branch. That branch was close to Eleanor's old workplace. I showed Daniel the records. He stared at them. "I don't remember making these withdrawals." "Are you sure?" He nodded. Then he suddenly remembered something. Before we got married, Eleanor had offered to help him manage his finances. Daniel had trusted her completely. He thought that arrangement had ended years ago. But the records suggested someone had continued accessing information connected to his accounts. We contacted the bank and requested a complete history. 3 days later, the documents arrived. One page made my heart stop. There was a transaction neither of us recognized. And beside it was a signature that looked almost exactly like Daniel's. Almost. But Daniel swore he had never signed it. That was when we stopped treating this like a family disagreement. We contacted a lawyer. She examined everything carefully. Then she gave us one simple instruction. Don't confront Eleanor yet. Why? Daniel asked. Because if someone is hiding something, Warning them could make the evidence disappear. So we stayed quiet. For the next 2 weeks, we collected everything. Bank records. Messages. Missing documents. Photographs. And the mysterious note. Then something even more disturbing happened. Eleanor came to stay with us for several days. One afternoon, while Daniel was away, I saw her enter my office. She looked around before opening my desk drawer. I stood in the hallway and watched. She removed a folder. Then she quickly placed something inside her purse. I waited until she left the room. When I checked the drawer, the folder was gone. I called our lawyer. She told me to remain calm. That evening, Eleanor acted as if nothing had happened. She sat at our dinner table, laughing and telling Daniel stories from his childhood. But I couldn't stop thinking about that folder. The next morning, I searched through the documents we still had. That's when I found something that changed everything. Hidden among our property papers was a document showing that someone had attempted to use our house information in a financial transaction. The transaction had been stopped. But someone had tried. And whoever did it had access to private documents from our home. I looked at Daniel. He finally understood. This isn't about Mom being controlling anymore, he said quietly. No, I replied. It's about what she's been planning. And for the first time, Daniel looked genuinely afraid. After we discovered the attempted transaction involving our property, Daniel finally stopped defending his mother. But we still didn't have enough proof to connect Eleanor directly to everything that had happened. Our lawyer contacted the authorities and explained the situation. The investigators told us not to confront Eleanor. Instead, they wanted us to wait. So we waited. For several days, nothing happened. Then, one evening, Eleanor called Daniel and asked if she could visit. He agreed. The moment she entered the house, I noticed something different. She wasn't acting nervous. She was calm. Too calm. She hugged Daniel and smiled at me. You two look exhausted, she said. I forced a smile. We've been busy. She looked around the house. Then her eyes stopped on the hallway leading toward our office. I noticed it. Daniel noticed it too. A few minutes later, Daniel went outside to take a phone call. Eleanor waited until he disappeared. Then she quietly walked upstairs. I followed her. She entered our office and closed the door. My heart started racing. But this time, we were prepared. The investigators had arranged legal monitoring of the room because we had already reported the missing documents and suspicious activity. I stayed outside. Minutes passed. Then the door opened. Eleanor stepped out holding a brown envelope. She froze when she saw me. What is that? I asked. Her face immediately changed. Nothing. She tried to walk past me. I stepped aside. Then why were you in our office? She didn't answer. Daniel came back inside. His eyes immediately went to the envelope. Mom, what's inside? Eleanor hugged it against her chest. It's personal. Daniel's voice became serious. Personal? From our office? She looked at him. Then she looked at me. You've poisoned him against me. I shook my head. No. You did that yourself. Daniel opened his hand. Give me the envelope. For several seconds, nobody moved. Finally, Eleanor handed it to him. Inside were copies of documents that had previously disappeared from our house. Bank records. Property papers. And information about accounts Daniel hadn't told her about. Daniel stared at the papers. Why do you have these? Eleanor's voice became quieter. I was trying to protect you. From what? She didn't answer. Then came 3 sharp knocks at the front door. Everyone went silent. Daniel looked at me. I already knew who it was. The police entered the house. Eleanor immediately stepped backward. "This is a misunderstanding," she said. But the investigators weren't there because of one envelope. They already knew about the missing documents, the financial activity, and the attempted transaction. They had been waiting for the right moment. And now they had it. Eleanor was questioned about the documents. She insisted she had done nothing wrong. But the investigators had another location to search. A storage unit Eleanor had access to. And when they opened that unit, they found something that left even the investigators speechless. A small black box. The same kind of box I had found months earlier. And this time, it wasn't empty. The storage unit was silent as the investigator placed the small black box on the table. For months, I had wondered what Eleanor had been hiding inside that box. Now, I was finally about to find out. The investigator opened it carefully. Inside were handwritten notes, copies of financial records, property documents, and a list of dates and account information. Some of those documents had been reported missing from our home. Daniel stared at them. His face went pale. "Mom, why?" Eleanor didn't answer. For the first time since I had known her, she had nothing to say. The investigators continued searching. They found additional paperwork connecting Eleanor to several suspicious financial activities. There was enough evidence to show that this wasn't a simple misunderstanding. She had been collecting our private information for months. She knew about our finances. She knew where we kept important documents. And she had tried to use that information without our permission. But there was still one question. Why? Later, during questioning, Eleanor finally admitted the truth. She had been struggling with serious financial problems. She had hidden her debts from the entire family. When Daniel and I bought our house, she became afraid that Daniel would focus completely on his new family and stop helping her. Instead of asking for help, she began making secret plans. She convinced herself that she was only protecting her future. But every step she took made the situation worse. She had crossed boundaries. She had broken Daniel's trust. And she had nearly put our home and finances at risk. The legal process continued for months. Some matters were settled through the courts and financial institutions. Our accounts were secured. Our documents were replaced. And Eleanor was no longer allowed access to our home or private information. But the hardest part wasn't the legal battle. It was what happened between Daniel and me. One night, he sat beside me in the living room. "I should have believed you sooner," he said. I looked at him. "I didn't need you to believe me blindly." I paused. "I just needed you to listen." He nodded. That was the moment I realized our marriage had survived something much bigger than an argument with his mother. We had learned that trust doesn't mean ignoring warning signs. And forgiveness doesn't mean allowing someone to hurt you again. Months later, I found the photograph I had taken of Eleanor's mysterious note. "You were never supposed to find this." I looked at it and smiled sadly. She had been right about one thing. I wasn't supposed to find it. But I did. And that tiny discovery led to the truth. I never wanted Eleanor destroyed. I wanted the lies to stop. I wanted my home to feel safe again. And I wanted the person I loved to understand that sometimes protecting a family means facing the truth, even when that truth is painful. Because secrets only have power while they remain hidden. Once the evidence comes into the light, the secret no longer belongs to the person who created it. And that night, when the police found the evidence, Eleanor finally learned the lesson she had forgotten. You can hide the truth for a while, but you can't hide it forever. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more stories of betrayal, justice, and unexpected revenge.